I'd like to be remembered as a person who made a difference. Not anything more, not anything less.
The Vivanta Navi Mumbai has a unique experience. Every week, you have between 10 to 15 families with children with autism and special needs staying here. The patients said when they came here, they felt looked after. They felt at home. They felt like family. This comes from the culture of the organization.
I've been treating Mr. Ratan Tata for the last 3 years. When we started talking, it went on to things what we need to do for people. There were many things that he would want to do which he shared with me. One of them was that how to help out kids.
I want to thank all of you, and I want you to know that you are in a unique position to actually contribute to all the other Taj hotels because you've learned some things which I think need to be passed on.
This is a very good initiative. Taj, of course, one of best in hospitality and employing people. So this is a wonderful opportunity for everyone. Once done, it will become a part of every institution, and which is the need of the hour.
Autism Connect is an association of parents and professionals. It has been formed to disseminate scientifically validated information. Such kind of seminars is what we do for autism, to spread awareness. Just quickly tell you about what our session is going to be today. So it is basically a program for sensitizing you employees and also guests who come in at Taj so that they know what autism is and they are aware about and what are the steps that need to be taken in totality. So that's what the seminar is all about today. Let me thank Taj for this great initiative that they have taken. We all know that the Taj Group and the Tata Group have always been the torch bearers and they always measure their success by the lives they touch. So we are truly honored to be here and be associated with Taj. There's an initiative that has been already taken by the Tata Power Group, which is Pay Attention. It is an organization for these people on the autism spectrum, and they're doing a lot of work in this direction. I can say a legacy that has been taken forward. All these initiatives Mr. Ratan Tata used to take. So I think this is just a legacy that has been taken forward. So thank you so much for that. We have our special guests today, Dr. Indu Tandon, who is an occupational therapist, and she has an experience of 25 years in the field of neurology, sports and orthopedics. She is one of a few certified lymphatic therapists in India, and also she is a certified nutrition and weight management expert. Now, something very special that I would like to mention about Dr. Indu Tandon. She has been with Mr. Ratan Tata and she's been his personal occupational rehabilitation therapist for 3 years. Till the time Mr. Ratan Tata passed away. She has worked with Mr. Ratan Tata closely over this period and helped him improve his quality of life. Dr. Alok Sharma, he is a neurosurgeon and a neuroscientist. Also, he has been the head at the Sion Hospital and a professor, and now he is the director at the Neurological Brain and Spine Institute.
Shin, I'd like to begin by thanking Regional Manager Mr. Sen Gupta. Thank you so much for inviting us here. Thank you so much for the discussions we've had. I'd like to also acknowledge Simran, who's been regularly in touch with us. First, I have to let you know that the Vivanta Navi Mumbai, where we are today, is sort of unique, has a unique experience now because every week you have between 10 to 15 families with children with autism and special needs staying here. I don't think there is any other hotel in the country which has that kind of experience. So you are in the right place, the right position to be able to not just contribute to this field but interact with us as well. We have a lot to learn from all of you, and we will share with all of you our scientific experience. So at the outset, I want to thank you all for looking after our patients from our hospital. Like I said, every week we have 10 to 15 patients. We've got a very positive feedback from those patients. Prior to having our patients stay here, they were staying somewhere else, and now we actually had a comparison because the patients said when they came here, they felt looked after. They felt at home. They felt like family. I had a personal experience just 15 minutes ago. We were sitting outside waiting when a family with a child with autism came down, and the child was to go out, but he was refusing to go out. Suddenly he had what is called a meltdown, broke down. He lay down flat on the bench and refused to go. And nobody was giving this child any looks. Nobody was giving this child looking at the child as to what is happening. And then the mother shared with us something very interesting. They said last night the child had vomited, and she said immediately the housekeeping people came and cleaned the place without making them feel awkward. This is very important. Okay, when your child has vomits or loses control over their bowels or urine, there is a cleanup without making the parents feel odd. They said they wanted an ORS, oral rehydration, and instantly the hotel provided that. Now, these are small things that mean the world to a family that has a special needs child, and this comes from your heart. This comes from the way you are. This comes from the culture of the organization. This is difficult to sort of put into people. It's either there or not there. And I think the culture and the work ethos, the professional outlook of your organization is what makes that happen. So first, on behalf of all the patients who've been staying there, or been staying with you, I want to thank all of you. And I want you to know that you are in a unique position to actually contribute to all the other Taj hotels, because you've learned some things which I think need to be passed on. So the purpose of this is interactive. We are going to share the science, we are going to share some facts, we are going to share what we have learned, but we'd also like to know from you what more, what better, what different we can do collaboratively. So that is the real purpose of this session.
Yes, Dr. Indu, we are really fascinated to know how has your interaction and what was your experience with Mr. Ratan Tata?
I've been treating him for the last 3 years till 3rd of October when I had my last session with him. There's like a whole lot of learning that I have seen through. I was always in awe of Mr. Ratan Tata till actually I got selected to treat him, and so it all started with where my first meeting with him was for 2.5 hours, where he was supposed to interview me, then we would take it as a final selection. And I remember going to his house and I was waiting, and he comes down from the lift. We sat through the meeting and I was very nervous. I mean, obviously I was very, very nervous to be sitting in front of him for the first time. Of course, we spoke about Parkinson's and different conditions and what I would have done in my career. Gradually, the conversation went on. It actually, when we started talking, it went on to things what we need to do for people. So I was very surprised that where I came to help him out and I came to interview and he was trying to assess, we went on to what the problems people were facing and how we can take care. In fact, simple things like backache and how people can work better with that. So are there solutions for that? So I didn't know for what I had come here. I mean, what is it that I'm going to treat? That's how we started. I was with him and I was kept on 1 month probation period, because it was told that only if Mr. Tata's chemistry will match with you, will you continue. It wasn't very easy to deal with him, because he was one person where every minute that he would invest in his exercise needed a justification. So if I was making him do some exercise, I would have to explain him as to how maybe breaking this clay or making the small clay ball will help him in buttoning the shirt. It was a learning process for me, because that's not how patients normally, they just trust you and whatever you're doing, they'll just keep doing, don't ask you questions and they go ahead. But here was a person who never asked me directly, but he always wanted the answers. Of course, the journey was, I won't say it was long enough, but yes, there was a lot of learning. And in this process, apart from his therapy, there were so many more things that we discussed, and there were so many people we helped. Like, people would approach me that I'm connected to him and maybe I would help them get a bed in Tata Hospital or something, and it would happen. And it was only because of Mr. Ratan Tata, because he was directly involved in it. There were many things that he would want to do, which he shared with me. One of them was that how to help out kids. Now, of course, we never spelled out that it was with autism or ADHD, but every child should be inclusive. So he would see all my patient videos also as to how things are getting better, what was the therapy provided, what is the effect that you see. So of course with him, I've just grown by leaps and bounds. I can say that you start thinking big, you start thinking of things which have not happened till now and you would want them to happen. So I'm very happy that this initiative has got this opportunity to take part in this, and I'm sure if he was there, it would have directly gone to him and he would be the happiest.
Being with him, interacting with him is like a dream, and you're so blessed. Sir, I would really love to know what exactly is autism.
The incidence of autism is just increasing and increasing and increasing. When I graduated as a medical student in the late 1980s, it hardly existed. One had hardly heard the name. 20 years ago, I mean, 2004, the incidence was something like 1 in 160, and today it is 1 in 36 as per the US CDC figures. The United States Center for Disease Control, which has the most accurate data, is actually talking out of 1 in 36 children. And everybody is giving it attention, including the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump. There's a TV interview he did recently where he actually highlights the interview is based completely on the increasing incidence of autism and its importance and its causes. So now you have the President of the United States talking about this subject. So it makes sense to be future ready. The number is, and the number is increasing. Like the year before, it was 1 in 44. Before that, it was 1 in 50. Before it was 1 in 60. So if you just look at the graphic, 1 in 36 now, if you just extrapolate, you're going to soon have a very large number of people, and this will become the new norm, the new normal. In fact, that is why all over the world now there is a trend to even earlier, autism was called autism and there were sub-classifications. And then they removed that and now call it autism spectrum disorder. But today there is a new thought that we should remove the word autism and say people are either neurotypical, that is people like us, and neurodivergent, that is people like them. So what is the functional difference between neurotypical and neurodivergent? In a simple thing I would say is the operating system of their brain is different. Computers have an operating system. It is different. It is not lesser, better, more. It is different. They process information differently. They process information slower than we slow. Their response to stimulation is different. In some cases exaggerated, in some cases subdued. The whole world is now looking at what is different with them so that we can coexist. Also, among the work we've done several, we do brain scans of these children, and we are not only finding that there are some parts of the brain that work less, but there are some parts that work more. The world's richest man today, Elon Musk, he has autism. He talks about his autism. Albert Einstein, the world's greatest scientist, was believed to have autism. Some of the world's greatest painters. I was in Amsterdam last week and I was at the Vincent van Gogh Museum, and there was an entire discussion in the museum on Van Gogh, having autism features. They've looked and seen some of the greatest inventions, some of the greatest creations have come from people who have either had some amount of ADHD or autism. So these are people who've pushed the human race forward. Yes, they have some limitations, and our purpose here is for you to understand both sides of the picture, to understand what they have in terms of multiple factors, because soon you're going to be having employees, people who are going to be working with some of these things. We are going to be sharing what is the best that we can do with them. Also, we would like to share with you in this seminar, maybe if possible, that when you have clients, children on the spectrum or other disabilities, what you need to know so that you can offer your best services.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for all the insightful information. What are the specific signs and symptoms that you see in a person who has autism?
Child or an adult with autism, of course you have diverse presentation. So not every autistic child or adult will be the same. But there are certain things which you have to look out for. So the first very important thing is they have a social communication challenge. So when you say about social communication, it could be verbal, it could be non-verbal. So if I look at you and I try to give you an expression that you need to understand, that's not how they will understand, right? So they wouldn't know what your expression are for, neither will they be able to express what they are feeling. So they do have problems in communication. You will see child with autism who will not make eye contact. He will not be comfortable with making eye contact without him realizing it. These patients have this kind of tendency where they will not interact with you. Maybe they will like a corner that they will like to sit in. You have to give them their space. They wouldn't follow your commands easily, not that they understand it, but they wouldn't want to understand it at that time. So you have to give them space. They have symptoms like repetition. They have this repeated behavior. So you can see it in different forms. So sometimes you see a child sitting and just flipping through the pages of a book constantly without realizing. You'll see them rocking on the chair. You will see them continuously speak of like just keep repeating some word. Anything, any activity, flapping their hands or any one physical movement which constantly happens. You can see them repeating sentences. Say if you ask them, how are you? They would ask you the same question, how are you, how are you, how are you, without giving you the answer. So these are some very important things that you see. They have the hypersensitivity as well as hyposensitivity in terms of sensory inputs. So when I say sensory input, if you are in a room, you enter a room with like crowd of people around, they may not be comfortable. If there's bright light, they may not be comfortable. Sudden sound or loud sound, they will not be comfortable. So it depends that which child or adult is, what is their sensitivity level. But at the same time, you will see they have a different level of cognition also. So as Sir mentioned, one of the greatest people would have, given us so many things, have signs and symptoms of autism. So they are very detail oriented. There is one task that they would want to do and they will do it better than anyone else. So they wouldn't be able to shift to tasks, but whatever task that you give them, they will understand it. So it could be like art, it could be music, it could be maths, it could be anything which is related to logical thinking. So these kids and adults have this very, very, very important feature. Like even the kids who come for treatment, it's amazing to see most of them I have seen having excellent math skills, which is difficult even for us to understand. Then of course one of the very important feature is the emotional meltdowns that they have. You wouldn't know what has affected them, but they would just start crying in public. They would start, they would not be able to hold on with their emotions. So these are some important signs that we immediately look out for someone having symptoms of autism.
What are the causes for autism?
Well, there's a long list, and I could spend 1 hour just talking about the causes of autism. Some of them have a scientific validity, and some of them are controversial. And in a session like this, I don't want to get into anything controversial. But the fact is that it is modern living, and everything that goes with modern living, the foods that we are taking, to the chemicals that we are exposed to the electromagnetic radiation that is all around us, to certain medications that the mothers may have taken, to a whole lot of other areas that could possibly be a cause. One of the increasing causes we are seeing is a little difficulty and problem at the childbirth process, less oxygen through the brain, mobile phone radiation, vaccinations. There are so many other controversial areas, but primarily what we have seen, it is shifting away from natural living to artificial living that seems to be the problem. Because not just in India, but all over the world, we are finding that in urban areas, the incidence is more than in rural areas. Earlier, I thought in India, this was because the diagnosis was not made. But my colleagues in Europe as well as America tell me the same thing, that, we have a higher incidence in urban areas than rural areas. So I think we need to look at various factors, but one important factor that we have to look at is the mother's emotional and physical health. I think by just addressing that one issue, because we are finding that there are several things, for example, having a child at an older age. Earlier, people had children in their early 20s. Now we are having children at a later age. There is data to show that having children at an older age, there's a greater incidence. But increasingly now, there is a focus on the mother's just not physical health, but also emotional health. And there is data that shows that the emotional state of the mother during pregnancy has a very important role to play in the development of various neurodevelopmental disorders.
So mobile phones sort of attribute to the cause. So yes, my next question would be to Dr. Indu. We would really love to know what is the difference between autism and ADHD, because we see there's a lot of overlap. So could you just elaborate that for us?
So ADHD is something you'll just see the person in motion. It is supposed to be like ADHD means in motion, right? And you can have both. You can have autism as well as ADHD at the same time. You have some presentations which may be similar also, but they still have their distinct identities. So as we mentioned that in autism, we will have social communication challenge. Now in a ADHD person, it'll be the strength. They will be outgoing, they will speak to people, right? So they don't have that kind of a challenge. They wouldn't know where to stop, where the limit is. They wouldn't shy away. You have repetitive behavior in autism. You will not see it in a ADHD child. So when it comes to having cognitive functions can be impaired even in a ADHD because they have a very short attention span. But the same thing in an autistic child, for one activity they can have the span for hours together, but the activity should be of their liking. But with the ADHD, we can't have an activity for a very long time. Even if it is of their liking, they will want to shift. So the attention span is very less for them. We have sensitivities in autism. We may not necessarily have that in ADHD kids. There is a lot of difference, but they have their own strengths and they have their own weaknesses.
So yes, I hope now we all are on the same page. So we have heard about what is autism, what are the causes. So now we are at least now aware what it is. And now we move on to the next, which is what are the steps that need to be taken to sensitize an organization in general.
So all over the world today, large corporates now getting what is called future ready. With the increasing incidence of autism, this will be the new normal. So it's better to be prepared in advance. So among the steps that an organization or any organization to take, which by the way, the Taj Group and the Tata Group is already doing. So I'm just going to share with you something which I know already happening. The first is staff awareness, which is happening right now as we speak. Because unless you understand something, you cannot do anything about it. So I think the first step is understanding not just autism, all other neurodevelopmental disorders and disabilities. It's important to understand them, to know what special assistance and help is required, also to know what are the things to avoid or prevent problems from happening. So that is step one, awareness, which is happening as we speak. The second is actually creating situations in the services where we can assist these individuals. Now this starts, I would say, from before the clients come in. So if there was I don't know how it is, but in the booking, if for example I would suggest something where people can answer, like sometimes you're asked, do you have special diet requirements? Do you want a smoking or non-smoking room? Questions are sometimes asked about physical disability. But if a question was asked, whether there is a special need child with them, then we could then go into a little more detailed questionnaire later. So the first thing, this starts from before. The second thing, the check-in process. The check-in process is the most difficult for these children and adults. We have seen that standing in lines, whether it is at airline counters, whether at hotels, something happens to them. So a lot of these kids have meltdowns while they are waiting because there is a crowd. If we could have a speedier, a faster check-in process or a separate check-in process for them, or like we do in a hospital, we've eliminated this altogether and do the check-in in the room so that they can go in the room so they don't have to wait. These are simple things that can help. So a faster, speedier check-in process, separate check-in process if possible. Also, we have to remember that the communication has to be clear and slow. The problem with autism and neurodevelopmental disorders is one of processing. They process information slowly, and it is very important that our communication is slow. When you talk to them fast or even at what we consider normal pace, they can't process that information. When you talk slowly, they understand it better. So communication is a very important key. Of course, this is different because you're not directly communicating with the child, you're communicating with the parents. But in general, it is just good to remember this. When you're dealing with them, talk slowly. Okay, so that they can process it. Now, there are 2-3 things that they are overtly sensitive to, as Dr. Indu just mentioned, is light, sound, and touch. So talking of lights, very bright lights seem to sometimes frazzle them. They don't know how to handle it, and they can have what are called meltdowns. So what they need is quiet areas which are dimly lit. So even in the check-in, if something is very bright, they just come there and they don't know what to do. The child will suddenly lie down on the floor and start, hands and legs. You don't know what is going on. So they need dimly lit areas. 2, they are very sensitive to sound, extremely sensitive. So if there is a noise, they don't know how to handle it. So it is suggested to create a little quiet areas for them. All they need is a few minutes of quiet and they settle down. And the third is touch. For example, something like a bean bag is very useful because a bean bag sort of hugs you. And that's what they want. They want that comforting of a hug. So these are things at the check-in. If there was just a bean bag in the reception anywhere, and if the child, just put the child on the bean bag and the child sort of just calm down. They relax on that. Then the next is in the room itself. So when you go to the room, and that, I have to appreciate the Navi Mumbai, because when our patients started coming in, all of you actually did some wonderful things, Simran, that you removed all the breakable things, all the glass things were removed, because these children have a tendency to, without realizing, break things. They will just take something and break it. They don't know what they're doing. They just, in a moment of emotional meltdown, can break things. So if there are special rooms curated where there are not too many breakable things, that helps. Then lights also need to be dimmer and controllable. Instead of having just a on-off light, if you could control the intensity accessibility, that helps. Then in terms of sound, sometimes you have headphones that eliminate sound, and if these could just be available in case some parents require it, that would help. Then there are things like weighted blankets. So they like blankets that are what are called weight blankets, which give them a sort of comforting sense. This is something we are happy to. We're already doing it actually. I mean, you're already doing it. We're very grateful that it's already happening. So all these things in the room help. The next thing is to have something like certain curated services. Now this includes food, for example. So these children are extremely sensitive to food. They will only eat some particular things. They like some things pureed, or they like something with less spices or whatever they want. And sometimes what I love about Vivanta is the senior chefs will actually come down to the rooms of our parents and ask them what the child wants, and then give them what they want. This is unique. This is very special. I don't think it happens anywhere in the world that you have the senior chefs coming down asking the parents, what can we make for your child? This is very important because some of them are on casein-free, gluten-free, ketogenic diets. They're on these very special diets, and their behavior is sometimes dependent. They have the wrong diet, and then they have behavioral issues. They get agitated. They sometimes can even get aggressive, and that is very often diet related. So by just taking care of their diet, just giving them the special food they require, changes a lot of their medical issues and problems. These are simple things, like for example now at the swimming pool, it's very important that, because they sometimes don't like noise and light, so if a separate time could be put together for them, so that, and always have a lifeguard. It's very important that they are never left alone, or somebody from there to keep a watch on these kids. So there's simple, there are many, there's a whole list we'll be happy to share with you, but there's some very simple, non-expensive things that we can do preventatively to see that these children are looked after. And one other very important thing, which people, I know you do it, but it's very important with them, feedback. Okay, there is no better learning than from the client itself. So please be, there is a general feedback, feedbacks come and everybody goes through them, but the feedback from special needs families needs to be specially looked at. Let me tell you a small thing about how the food was served, or something like that, which you can now correct. Please look into their feedback with attention, and ensure that whatever they are saying, and most of the time, they are very simple things. They are not asking for the earth and the moon. They are asking for very simple, small things. Some of the things we've noticed, for example, suddenly you have weddings, or you have festivals, you have Ganpati, and we have Diwali, and all these noises can make these kids get into behavioral issues, because it's not their fault. The sound affects them. So here, preventatively warning them, okay, there's a wedding and there's going to be a barat, and there's going to be some noise, and maybe at that time, they should have the dinner early or have the dinner separately. They're just simple, small things that we can do. This noise cancelling headphones are very useful. So if you just give those to them, simple technology, the child is peaceful, the parents can have food, even in the restaurant, and I know you already do it, creating sometimes a separate table for them, a separate corner for them that is, not very brightly lit. They're very sensitive to music and things like that, loud music. And one of the things the Vivanta does is something very special. Every Wednesday, I believe you arrange a little social program for them. You just do a little fun and games, and that's unique. I don't know of anybody else who would do this. You arrange a special program for special needs kids where they just have fun, and it's not the party or the thing, it's just parents feel looked after. And parents have told us very often when their child comes to the hospital from here and comes back and they find toys in the room and small things. It's the small little things that make the difference. This is what, as an organization, now I'm talking to the hotel industry, but this will be true in general as well, for all service industry people to understand what is the basic thing. I'll repeat again. Children with autism or special needs are sensitive to sound, light, and touch, and we need to curate special experiences for them. Okay, that's all. They're sensitive. So if we understand that, and that the communication with them needs to be slower, and I forgot to add, it should be with verbal cues. Like if along with what you talk to the parents, you can give them things in writing. One last thing which is forgotten and which we hope we never need, but this is important, is in times of disaster and fires. When the fire alarms goes off, actually there is a panic, and if the child is alone, they are the last people to come out of difficult situations. We hope and pray there are never such disasters, but should there be, the staff looking after the evacuation should know which rooms they have to go personally to. Here you can't let them come on their own, because they will not come on their own. They will actually lock themselves in because of the fear, the noise and all that. This can be life-saving, and it is known to happen in disasters that they are the last people to actually evacuate. So you can't see, in a normal fire evacuation, everybody leaves on their own. Here it's the opposite, they don't. So we have to take care. These are little small things, but they can help save lives.
What if there is an employee who is working in Taj, is on the autism spectrum? So what are the steps to be taken in this situation? That question would be to Dr. Indu.
So that's a very good question, because this is something which, when you say about inclusivity, this is a very important thing, and it gives you an opportunity to employ more people with this also. So the only thing is that yes, it's not as simple as these are the steps to be taken if an employee has autism, and how would you treat them and how would you employ them. It needs a little bit of training for sure, but understanding what the level of autism is, because as we know, it's a spectrum, right? So each one of us, in fact, sitting in the room also is somewhere in the spectrum. So where the person lies to first know is important. So you will know the strength and weaknesses. Now, as we mentioned that in autism, we have our strengths are really strong. So if you can identify what is the strength of the person, you can employ them in the right kind of work also. Like if you have a level 1 of autism, which is where they need very minimal support, but they definitely need a support, right? So you can still have them, you can give them a little bit of a detail oriented task. You can make where you don't need too much of social communication. You're not right in front of the guest, facing the guest. Maybe you can have things where you have very set protocols. Even if you're on the front desk, you can have the set protocol things to be done by that person, which will be done absolutely well. These people are really good in anything where if you tell them they need to take care of housekeeping, your room is going to be the best, because the way your bed will be laid, the towels will be rolled, the things will be kept in the bathroom will be better than any other staff. So you have to identify. Now similarly, if you're stage 2, if you're level 2 functioning, where you need a little more support, then you can have some back office work, you can have some online work, because they are very good in maths, they are very good in logical thinking, they are very good in coding also. So if you identify, you can place them at various areas. Like even in banquet halls, if you need to set up tables, you need to see if things are in place, if you have an inventory, if you give them things which are very specific, it should be open-ended that you have to do it all. You have to give them the task to be done, and they will do it beautifully. So it's very easy to incorporate them and still get the best out of them, and at the same time the staff around has to be a little sensitive. You have to be sensitive to your colleague also, because you understand what they would be undergoing. So if you take care of these things, there are various areas in hospitality also where people will work very well.
So identifying their abilities and then enhancing is the key. Also, let's look at the next aspect, which is what if there is an employee who has a child who is on the autism spectrum? So how do we handle that situation?
There is a child back home who is suffering. Of course, from the organization itself, empathy is the first thing that comes into picture, and there are many more logistics that go around it as to what help the employee has at home for the child. But I guess every institute, or right now we are talking about hotels, but we can have some provisions for such people where you have flexible work timing if needed. If the child has to be taken for therapy or any of their counseling sessions, they need a time off. That should be accommodated in your work hours, or give them accordingly depending on what their schedule is if needed. If there is something which is on site, if how in offices you have childcare rooms also, where if you have just delivered a baby and you still want to continue work, you have a childcare area. In hotels, you have a small area where for your employee, if the child can't be left back home and has to travel with the parent for work, there can be an area where you have maybe trained people who can take care also, and the child can be managed, just like you have a play area, but you have to specifically have a small area which is designed for autism, which can be very helpful even for the kids who are your guest, so where you have specific sensory stimulations and you have specific areas where you're kind of training them in a playway method. So you can have that. You can definitely have training programs for the staff where the employees are aware of what to do with the child. So even the one who's working, who's a parent, who may be aware, but if you have constant training programs in your organization, that will help even the parent to take care of the child better. And of course, if needed any financial help, that is of course up to the organization, but that may be one consideration which should be done.
Dr. Alok Sharma, I would love you as well to put in some insights.
I think Dr. Indu's covered everything completely, very comprehensively, but I'd like to focus a little bit about employees, because now it is likely that we are going to have more and more people, particularly with ADHD, not so much with autism, coming in, and other disability. We have intellectual disability, we have Down syndrome, we have the other people who are capable of full work who are now likely to be joining the workforce. We have of Persons with Disability Act 2016. It's a very interesting law that the government of India has taken out. There are several regulations. For example, in the government sector, 4% of the employment is supposed to be reserved to people with disabilities. Right to Persons of Disability Act lists 21 disabilities. Autism is one of them. Cerebral palsy is another one. So several of these things are listed in that. I believe that these people have amazing strengths which, if channelized appropriately, can benefit the organization in ways none of us can do. They all have a unique brilliance. Not only are we seeing it, but we do special brain scans of people with autism. These are called PET CT scans, which actually show us which parts of their brain are hypermetabolic or working more than our brains. And we have seen in some of our children amazing abilities, things that you can't even believe, whether it is terms of mathematics or calculations. In some it is creativity, in art, in some it's music, in some it's mechanical repair and things like that. Whenever we have somebody come to us with any kind of, whether it's ADHD or autism or learning disability, from the HR perspective, from the management perspective, we have to look at two things. We have to look at what is it that is special in them and what is it that they can't do like others, because it would not be fair to push them to do things that we can't do. For example, I don't know if you know it, but Dr. Indu runs marathons. She's a competitive marathon winner. Yesterday she ran a 20-kilometer run. But if I expect maybe me to run, I can't do it. Okay, you ask me to run a marathon, I can't. But she does. Okay, so we are different. Likewise, we have to see the difference. Let's not make them do things they are not capable of doing. So there needs to be in the HR, particularly in HR, a sensitization about what they can and cannot do, and then we look for those skill sets, and then we have an inclusive opportunity given to them. And if you can get them into doing what they are special at, trust me, and we've seen this from our own experience, you will get results that 10 other people can't put in. But that's the whole trick. Our problem is we try to fit these people into regular slots, and that does not work. It's not fair to them and it's not productive to the organization. So identifying this, and we are very happy to work with you on that. We've already offered that, if any employee comes, we are happy to do the psychological evaluations and actually give you a report as to what we think they're really good at. So this has been our personal experience. The thing is, each of these children or adults is different, just like all of us are different. None of us have similar talents. None of us have similar skills. The example I very commonly give is that of Sachin Tendulkar. His father very early on saw his skill in cricket and he got him coached in cricket instead of pushing him to go to college and graduate and become a doctor and an engineer. Imagine if his father tried to push him into becoming an engineer or a doctor, what would have happened? So his father picked up his special abilities and then coached him, and we had one of the world's greatest sportsmen. I use this example to tell you that we have to do the same thing when people come to us. Identify what they're especially good at. In the hospitality industry, there are several things, like Dr. Indu said, that they are wonderful at, and one of them is their attention to detail. And secondly, once they are in something they like, their focus. So they look at life in a very focused manner, unlike us where we look at life. So whereas that can be a limitation, it's also a skill. You look at Elon Musk, he decides I'm going to make cars without carbon fuels, and there's so many people who tried that before, but he just single-handedly goes and does it. The same thing whether with his SpaceX or whether Neuralink, he's trying to get an interface between the brain and microchips. So he decides something, and then there's this single-minded laser focus to do it. Now this is something that we have to our people, and there are going to be more and more. There are going to be more and more people, in particular with ADHD, which are going to be joining the workforce. Personal experiences, depending on how the HR selects them, gives them job descriptions, you can either get somebody who's completely outstanding or somebody who won't be able to work with the organization at all, which is not fair to them as well as to the organization.
Fantastic. So let's together build an inclusive world. That's what our message is.
This is a very good initiative, and if it can be taken forward and it can be made more structured so that we have more people who can be included in our industry, others will get opportunity. And Taj, of course, is one of the best in hospitality. We all know that, but taking care of this will definitely take us a notch higher and employing people. So this is a wonderful opportunity for everyone, and we all must think out of the box and do something which people don't do, and it's not an easy thing, but once done it will become a part of every institution, and which is the need of the hour. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.